The Lacora Station docking bay smelled faintly of coolant and ozone, the air thick with the hum of distant machinery. Captain Jonas Varn stepped off his shuttle, the soles of his boots clanking against the metallic floor. He ran a hand through his short, dark hair, straightened his jacket, and looked down at his companion, a golden retriever named Cooper. Cooper sat obediently by Jonas's side, his tail wagging in slow, sweeping arcs. His warm brown eyes scanned the bustling port, his nose twitching as he sniffed at the air. "Big day for us, boy," Jonas murmured, reaching down to scratch behind Cooper's ears. "Try to make a good impression, huh? Not everyone out here understands what makes you so special." Cooper responded with a soft bark, wagging his tail more enthusiastically. Jonas chuckled and straightened, taking in the scene before him. Lacora Station, a sprawling trade hub perched in orbit around Corin 4, was a melting pot of galactic species. Brightly colored aliens traded goods, argued over prices, and shared stories from far-flung systems. This vibrant chaos, however, was not what Jonas was here for. He was on a mission to represent Earth in negotiations with the Threxian Dominion, a rigidly disciplined species who valued control and order above all else. The Threxian emissary, Calpax, awaited him in the central meeting chamber. Jonas had been briefed extensively on Threxian customs. Precision and decorum were paramount. One misstep could offend their sensibilities and derail the talks entirely. Yet as Jonas walked toward the chamber, Cooper trotting dutifully at his side, he could feel the eyes of aliens turning toward them. Many had never seen a dog before, and the sight of the golden retriever elicited a mix of curiosity, amusement, and, in some cases, thinly veiled fear. The meeting chamber was a stark contrast to the lively docking bay. Its walls were smooth and featureless, the lighting subdued, and the air heavy with the scent of sterilization agents. At its center stood Calpax, towering and alien. His exoskeleton gleamed under the overhead lights, and his multifaceted eyes glinted as they tracked Jonas's every movement. When Calpax's gaze fell on Cooper, the Threxian froze. His posture stiffened, and a low clicking sound emanated from his throat, a sign of unease. "You bring a predator into our negotiations?" Calpax's voice was low and raspy, each word sharp and deliberate. Jonas kept his tone light, though he could feel the weight of the moment. "This is Cooper. He's my companion, and I assure you, no threat. He's a golden retriever, a domesticated species from Earth, known for their loyalty and kindness." Calpax's eyes narrowed, the clicking sound continuing. "It is a creature of teeth and muscle, a predator by nature. How can it be trusted?" Jonas crouched beside Cooper, patting the dog's head. "He's not just a predator, he's a friend. Watch this." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small red ball. Cooper's ears perked up instantly, his tail wagging with renewed vigor. Jonas tossed the ball lightly across the chamber, and Cooper darted after it, catching it mid-bounce before trotting back with the ball held proudly in his jaws. The other alien delegates watched with a mixture of fascination and confusion, but Calpax remained rigid, his claws twitching. "It obeys commands," he said, his tone grudging. "But to what end? What purpose does it serve? In matters of diplomacy?" Jonas stood, pocketing the ball. "Cooper's purpose is simple. He reminds us of the bonds we share. Loyalty, trust, and the ability to work together. Humanity's partnership with dogs has lasted thousands of years. They're part of who we are." Before Calpax could reply, the station's intercom crackled to life, and an urgent voice echoed through the chamber. "Alert! Unidentified vessels have entered the system. All personnel to defensive positions." The delegates erupted into motion, scrambling for information. Jonas turned to Calpax. "What's the protocol here?" Calpax's posture straightened, his voice steady despite the growing tension. "We determine the nature of the threat and eliminate it swiftly. Follow me to the control center." Jonas nodded and the two set off, Cooper padding along beside them. The control center was a hive of activity, holographic displays lighting up with tactical data. The incoming vessels were sleek and black, bristling with weaponry. Jonas's stomach sank as he recognized their design. "Shaldren marauders," he said grimly. "Pirates. Nasty ones." Calpax studied the data, his claws tapping against a console. They refuse communication and are charging weapons. What do you suggest, human? Jonas thought quickly. Shaldrin's ships have strong shields, but their cloaking devices are a weak point. If we can disable their cloaks, we can target them effectively. Talpax's gaze flicked to Jonas, then to Cooper. And how do you propose we accomplish this? Jonas crouched beside Cooper, scratching his head. We'll need to get close. Cooper and I can infiltrate one of their ships and plant a signal disruptor. It's risky, but it'll give your defenses the opening they need. Talpax stared at him, the clicking sound returning. You would entrust this mission to the beast? I would, Jonas said firmly. He's more resourceful than you think. For a long moment, Talpax was silent. Finally, he inclined his head. Very well, but understand this, failure is not an option. Jonas rose, a confident grin on his face. Don't worry, Cooper's never let me down. As the crew prepared a small stealth craft, Jonas knelt beside his dog, attaching the signal disruptor to Cooper's harness. Ready for another adventure, boy? Cooper barked softly, his tail wagging in a slow, steady rhythm. Jonas smiled, the weight of the mission settling on his shoulders. Let's go show 'em what we're made of. The stealth craft launched into the void, carrying man and dog toward the heart of danger and a chance to prove that even in the cold expanse of space, loyalty and ingenuity could triumph over fear. The stealth craft glided through the asteroid field, its cloaking systems rendering it invisible to the Shaldrin marauders. Jonas piloted with practiced precision, weaving between jagged rocks and avoiding the faint pulses of enemy scanners. Beside him, Cooper sat alert, his tail wagging in a slow, measured rhythm, as if sensing the tension in the air. Jonas glanced at his companion, unable to help a small smile. You always look so calm. If only the rest of us had your nerves of steel. Cooper responded with a quiet bark, tilting his head as if to say, what's there to worry about? The Marauder fleet loomed into view, their ships clustered around a massive flagship that bristled with weaponry. Jonas's scanner pinged softly, marking the most vulnerable entry point. A maintenance airlock near the ship's stern seemed ideal for infiltration. Okay, buddy, Jonas said, activating the autopilot and standing to check Cooper's harness. We'll slip in, plant the disruptor, and get out before they know what hit them. Simple, right? Cooper wagged his tail, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. The stealth craft latched onto the Shaldrin ship's airlock with a soft clunk. Jonas popped the hatch, leading Cooper into a narrow corridor lit by flickering red lights. The air smelled metallic, with an undertone of something acrid and unpleasant. The ship's interior was a maze of intersecting hallways and vertical shafts. Jonas moved cautiously, his scanner guiding the way. Cooper followed close behind, his movements unnervingly quiet for a creature of his size. They reached a junction where the corridor split in two. Jonas hesitated, scanning both directions. Suddenly, Cooper sniffed the air and growled softly, his ears perking up. "What is it, boy?" Jonas whispered, crouching beside the dog. Cooper nudged Jonas toward the left-hand corridor, his body tense but focused. Jonas trusted the dog's instincts and followed, keeping low. Moments later, a patrol of Shaldrin guards passed down the right-hand corridor, their guttural voices echoing off the walls. "Good call," Jonas muttered, giving Cooper a quick pat. "You're earning your keep already." The pair continued deeper into the ship, avoiding patrols and security cameras. Cooper's keen senses proved invaluable, warning Jonas of threats before they appeared. At last they reached the engine room. The frequency relay, a glowing blue cylinder surrounded by a nest of conduits, stood at the center of the chamber. Jonas approached cautiously, his pulse quickening as he prepared to plant the disruptor. Cooper sniffed the air again and barked softly, his tail wagging in encouragement. "Stay sharp," Jonas said, attaching the device to the relay. It clicked into place, its green light blinking to indicate it was armed. Suddenly, the ship's alarm system blared, the sound reverberating through the engine room. Jonas cursed under his breath, his fingers flying over the disruptor's interface to complete the activation sequence. "We've been made," he said, glancing at Cooper. "Time to move." Cooper barked once and darted toward the door, his golden coat gleaming in the flashing red light. Jonas followed, his heart pounding as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder. The pair raced through the corridors, weaving past crates and machinery. Shaldron guards shouted behind them, their guttural voices filled with anger. At one point, a guard appeared in their path, blocking the way with a menacing snarl. Cooper didn't hesitate. With a sharp bark, he lunged forward, grabbing the guard's weapon strap and yanking it loose. The startled alien stumbled, giving Jonas enough time to dart past with Cooper at his heels. "Good work, boy!" Jonas called, his voice breathless. They reached the maintenance airlock just as the disruptor's signal pulsed through the ship. The lights flickered and a low rumble echoed through the hull as the cloaking systems began to fail. Jonas hit the airlock release and the hatch hissed open. "Go, go, go!" he shouted, ushering Cooper inside. The stealth craft detached from the Shaldron ship just as its systems began to destabilize. Through the viewport, Jonas watched as the pirate fleet flickered into view, their cloaks disabled by the disruptor. The Shaldron ships scrambled to react, but it was too late. Lakora Station's defense cannons lit up the void, firing with pinpoint accuracy. One by one, the Marauder vessels were destroyed or forced to retreat, their once formidable fleet reduced to scattered debris. Jonas let out a long breath, slumping back in his seat. Cooper sat beside him, his tail wagging as if to say, "We did it." "Another mission accomplished," Jonas said, reaching down to scratch behind Cooper's ears. "You're the best partner a guy could ask for." Cooper barked softly, his golden coat glowing in the dim light of the cockpit. When they returned to Lokura Station, the pair were greeted with cheers. The council hailed their bravery, and even Kalpax, ever the skeptic, offered a grudging nod of respect. "Your beast," the Threxian said, "has demonstrated remarkable qualities. It seems there is more to these Earth creatures than I understood." Jonas grinned. "You're starting to get it, Kalpax. Cooper isn't just a beast. He's family." Kalpax tilted his head, his multifaceted eyes reflecting a glimmer of something that might have been admiration. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your ways, human, unorthodox as they may be." As the celebration continued, Jonas looked down at Cooper, who was happily gnawing on a well-deserved treat. The dog's unwavering loyalty and courage had turned the tide of the battle, proving once again that even in the vastness of space, the bond between man and dog could overcome any challenge. And for Jonas, that simple truth was more profound than any diplomatic victory. The cheers in Lokura Station Central Plaza faded as Giannis stood before the council, his expression tense. Cooper sat at his side, his golden coat gleaming under the bright station lights. While the Shaldron fleet had been driven off, their presence so deep in Allied space raised troubling questions. Kalpax loomed nearby, his exoskeleton catching the light with an unsettling sheen. The Threxian emissary's posture was rigid, his claws twitching in time with the rhythmic tapping of his clawed feet. "The Marauders have grown bold," he said, his voice sharp. "This was not a random raid. They sought to destabilize this region, perhaps even to test our defenses." Jonas nodded. "They've never been this organized before. Someone's pulling their strings. If we don't find out who, this will only be the beginning." Osri, a feathered diplomat from the Avian Collective, ruffled her plumage and leaned forward. "And how do you propose to find them, Captain Varn? The Shaldron are elusive, and their base of operations has evaded detection for decades." Jonas crouched to pat Cooper's head, his fingers brushing the dog's harness where the disruptor had been secured during their earlier mission. "They're not as invisible as they think. The energy signature from their cloaking tech gives off a unique trace. If we scan the debris field from their destroyed ships, we might be able to triangulate their base's location." A low murmur rippled through the council chamber. Kalpax tilted his head, his multifaceted eyes reflecting a glimmer of intrigue. "Your plan has merit," he admitted, "but it will be dangerous. The Marauders will anticipate retaliation and will fortify their stronghold accordingly." Jonas stood, his resolve clear. "Danger's part of the job. Besides, Cooper and I work best under pressure." At the mention of his name, Cooper barked, his tail wagging enthusiastically. The counselors exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and reluctant approval. Malak, the amphibian delegate from the marsh worlds, croaked a low, rumbling laugh. "Your Earth creature seems fearless, Captain. I hope it proves as reliable in this endeavor as it did in the last." Jonas smiled. "You can count on him." The The council approved the plan, and within hours, Jonas and Cooper were aboard a reconnaissance ship, combing through the debris field left by the recent battle. The ship's scanners hummed as they analyzed fragments of Shaldron technology, searching for the elusive energy signature. Jonas sipped a cup of synth coffee as he watched the scanner readouts. Cooper sat nearby, his nose twitching, as if he could sniff out the data himself. "You're gonna spoil me, boy," Jonas said with a chuckle. "After this mission, no one else on the crew will ever compare." Cooper tilted his head, letting out a soft, inquisitive bark. Jonas laughed and shook his head. The scanner chimed, drawing his attention. A faint trace of the Shaldron cloaking signature appeared on the display, leading toward an uncharted region of space. Jonas leaned closer, his excitement growing. "There you are," he murmured. "Looks like we've got a trail to follow." Cooper barked again, his tail wagging as if he understood. Jonas set the coordinates, and the ship jumped to hyperspace, hurtling toward the source of the signal. When they arrived, they found themselves in the shadow of a massive asteroid field. Jonas's eyes narrowed as he studied the field on the ship's sensors. The energy signature was strongest at its center, where a cluster of asteroids seemed suspiciously dense. "Clever," Jonas muttered. Hiding their base in the middle of a natural shield, he turned to Cooper, his voice firm. "Looks like we're going in." Navigating the asteroid field was a nerve-wracking ordeal. The ship's shields flared as small rocks scraped against its hull, and Jonas had to rely on Cooper's sharp instincts to avoid larger collisions. Each time the dog barked or shifted his weight, Jonas adjusted the ship's trajectory, trusting Cooper's uncanny sense of danger. Finally, they emerged into a clearing at the heart of the field. The Shaldron base was a sprawling structure, its jagged spires and weapon emplacements jutting out from a central hub. Ships buzzed around it like angry hornets, their patrol patterns precise and relentless. Jonas set the ship to idle, staring at the base with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "This is going to be tricky," he said, glancing at Cooper. "We'll need to get in and out without raising the alarm. Think you're up for it?" Cooper barked once, his tail wagging confidently. Jonas chuckled. "I'll take that as a yes." The two suited up and transferred to a small, stealth-equipped shuttle. As they approached the base, Jonas activated the cloaking field, holding his breath as they slipped past the patrols. The shuttle docked in a maintenance bay, and the hatch hissed open. Jonas crouched, motioning for Cooper to follow. "Stay close, boy. This place is crawling with trouble." The interior of the base was a chaotic tangle of corridors and maintenance tunnels. Jonas relied on his scanner to navigate, but it was Cooper who alerted him to threats, pausing and growling softly whenever patrols approached. Each time, Jonas ducked into cover, marveling at the dog's uncanny ability to sense danger. As they moved deeper into the base, Jonas spotted their objective, a central command hub where the Shaldron coordinated their operations. The room was heavily guarded, with soldiers stationed at every entrance. Jonas crouched behind a stack of crates, formulating a plan. "We'll need a distraction," he whispered to Cooper. "Think you can cause some chaos?" Cooper wagged his tail, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. Jonas grinned and attached a small device to Cooper's harness, a noisemaker that emitted random, disorienting sounds. He activated it and gave the dog a quick pat. "Go get 'em, boy." Cooper darted into the open, barking loudly as the noisemaker blared a cacophony of clicks, chirps, and screeches. The guards turned in confusion, their weapons raised as they tried to identify the source of the commotion. Jonas took advantage of the chaos, slipping into the command hub and planting a signal disruptor on the central console. The device blinked green as it activated, sending a cascading signal through the Shaldron network. Alarms blared as systems across the base began to shut down. Jonas whistled sharply and Cooper came bounding back to him, his tail wagging as if they weren't surrounded by danger. "Time to go," Jonas said, sprinting toward the exit with Cooper at his side. The base erupted into chaos as Jonas and Cooper made their escape. Shaldron soldiers shouted orders and automated defenses fired wildly, but the pair moved with practiced precision. By the time they reached their shuttle, the disruptor had fully taken effect, disabling the base's communications and weapons systems. As the shuttle blasted away from the base, Jonas watched on the sensors as Locarus Station's reinforcements arrived, their ships firing on the now helpless marauders. He slumped back in his seat, letting out a long breath. "Another mission in the bag," he said, scratching Cooper's ears. "You were amazing out there, boy." Cooper barked softly, his tail wagging as he rested his head on Jonas's lap. Together they watched the Shaldron base crumble into the void, a testament to the unbreakable bond between man and dog, and the power of a little creativity in the face of overwhelming odds. Jonas guided the shuttle back to Lokara Station, the faint hum of its engines a soothing contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. Cooper lay at his feet, his golden coat rising and falling with each contented breath. Jonas reached down to pat the dog's side, his fingers brushing the now empty harness. "You did good, buddy," Jonas said softly. "Real good." As the station came into view, Jonas switched on the comms. The familiar voice of Asri greeted him. "Captain Varn, we've been monitoring your progress. The Shaldron base has been neutralized. Reinforcements are mopping up the remaining vessels. Your mission is a resounding success." Jonas leaned back in his seat, letting the tension ease from his shoulders. "Glad to hear it, Asri. We're coming in for docking now." The shuttle docked smoothly, and the airlock hissed open to reveal a crowd of cheering station personnel. Jonas stepped out with Cooper at his side, the dog's tail wagging furiously as he took in the adoration. Kalpex stood at the forefront of the gathering, his multifaceted eyes fixed on Jonas and Cooper. The Threxian emissary's posture was as rigid as ever, but there was an unmistakable shift in his demeanor, something softer, almost contemplative. "Captain Varn," Kalpex said, his voice steady, "you have accomplished what many deemed impossible. The Shaldron threat has been eradicated and the region is secure." His gaze dropped to Cooper. "And your companion played no small part in this victory." Jonas knelt beside Cooper, scratching the dog behind the ears. "He's the real hero here. I couldn't have done it without him." Cooper barked once, his tail wagging even harder as if he understood the praise. Kalpak stepped closer, his towering form casting a shadow over Jonas and Cooper. For a moment, the Threxian seemed at a loss for words. Finally he spoke, his tone uncharacteristically thoughtful. "On my world, such creatures would be seen as a liability, a distraction. Yet your dog has shown qualities that even my people value. Loyalty, resourcefulness, and bravery." Jonas stood, meeting Kalpex's gaze. "Dogs have been part of human history for thousands of years. They're more than animals to us. They're partners, family. And when you trust them, they'll go to the ends of the universe for you." Kalpax tilted his head, his claws clicking softly against the floor. "Perhaps there is wisdom in this bond of yours. It defies logic, yet it achieves results. I find myself reconsidering my perspective." Jonas grinned. "That's the thing about humanity. We have a knack for surprising people." As the crowd dispersed, leaving Jonas and Cooper to enjoy a moment of quiet, Kalpax lingered. He crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to Cooper's level. The dog cocked his head, his tail slowing but still wagging. With a deliberate motion, Kalpex extended a clawed hand toward Cooper. The dog sniffed it cautiously before giving it an enthusiastic lick. Jonas raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Careful, Kalpax. Once Cooper decides he likes you, he won't leave you alone." Kalpax straightened, his claws twitching as he processed the interaction. "Your beast is peculiar, but perhaps it is I who must adapt." Jonas laughed, clapping Kalpax on the shoulder. "That's progress, my friend." In the days that followed, Jonas and Cooper became unlikely celebrities aboard Lokara Station. Stories of their exploits spread across the galaxy, inspiring awe and incredulity in equal measure. Delegates from far-flung systems approached Jonas with curiosity, seeking to learn more about Earth's unique partnership with its canine companions. Even Kalpax, once so skeptical, began to warm to the idea. One day, as Jonas and Cooper strolled through the station's arboretum, they encountered the Threxian emissary deep in conversation with Asri. Kalpax paused to observe Cooper, his multifaceted eyes reflecting a rare softness. "Captain Varn," Kalpax said, "your methods remain unconventional, but they have shown me that strength is not always found in logic or strategy. Sometimes it is found in trust." Jonas smiled, resting a hand on Cooper's back. "That's the best lesson I could hope to teach." Cooper barked, his tail wagging as if to agree. As they walked away, Jonas couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment, not just for the mission, but for the connections he had forged. The galaxy was vast and filled with differences, but moments like these reminded him that understanding could bridge any divide. And in the heart of it all was a dog whose loyalty and courage had